Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, thank you for coming. My name is Matt Cooke. I'm from the Google News Initiative. I'm here to talk about maps for the newsroom. This is going to be a very quick 1 hour look at a range of different mapping tools that, as the video says, can help you navigate some of the stories in a visual way and support your quality journalism and your processes. I can see some of you have your headphones on. My Italian is not so good today. Maybe it'll be better tomorrow. But those headsets are at the back if you need them. We have a lot to get through, but I'll also make sure we have some time for questions, whether here or out there at the end. And also I'll give you lots of resources to go from after this as well. So as I said, I'm Matt. I've been at Google for about 5 years. Before that, I was a broadcast journalist at the BBC for about 6 years. And so everything I'm talking about today comes from that editorial point of view. I'm definitely not the tech expert in the room, as will become clear over the next 50 minutes or so. And if I can't answer your question, I make sure I'll come back on email with the proper answer. So I'm head of partnerships and training at a team called the Google News Lab. That's a global team that is part of the Google News Initiative that video talked about. Just a very quick summary here of what that Google News Initiative is. But if you want to know more about that, straight across the corridor, we have a whole room dedicated to inform you and to get feedback from you about what we can do to be better partners. So this is the team that I work on, the Google News Lab. We've been around about 3.5 years now, and most of us on the team are former journalists. We work with journalists and entrepreneurs to strengthen innovation and think about how you can use a range of digital tools, not just Google ones, by the way, to think about storytelling, think about news gathering, research, and so on. We've trained in the last 3.5 years around 95,000 journalists in person. It's been a busy 3 or 4 years. And also we've got a lot of resource online as well. Pleased to say we also have a teaching fellow for Italy in the room, Barbara at the front. There you go. So if you're looking for in-person training here in Italy, we now have someone who can do that as well. Very quick summary, this is what the News Lab really is focusing on, these 4 themes. And a lot of this will not be unfamiliar to you. Trust and misinformation. Tomorrow I'm doing a whole hour on some of the tools that are around to help journalists when they are looking at news gathering. Let's look at local news. What more can we do to make sure that local newsrooms have a sustainable business model? And also how can we make sure that journalists who are starting their careers in local or in local and have been there for many years have opportunities that some of the bigger newsrooms get to. How can we make sure that we're helping new entrants to journalism? How can we make sure that people who maybe haven't traditionally had a voice are also able to join the conversation? And today also looking at emerging technologies. What about data journalism? What about AI, ML, VR, 360? Good, bad, mixed? What does that mean for journalism? And this is an area we're looking at in great depth around the world. As I said, we're here though to talk about maps, and we're looking at the tools for journalism. Who here today has heard of Google before you came to this session? 1, 2, 3. People know that Google is here. They know about some of these tools, perhaps. But if you were a journalist using any of these tools, until about 3.5 years ago, it was kind of hard to find the instruction manual. So we had a look at that, and this is our latest offering. If you want to look at any of the tools we're talking about today in your own time, if you are maybe a teacher, maybe you are a manager, an editor, and you have people who use the tools and you want them to go somewhere to take a look, then g.co/newstraining is our short link, and that will get you through to 55 lessons. Happy to say there is a version in Italian. I think there are around about 12 languages currently, and many more to come. We're also looking at how we can make this better. There are courses on there, there are tools. There's a bit of explanation about our teaching fellowship and so on, but much more to come as we take feedback on board. g.co/newstraining, take a look. Let's get on with it though. Let's get on with maps. I can move quickly into the first thing. Imagine you are a journalist and there's a breaking news story. You have nothing in your archive of that image, that building, let's say. You have nothing on social media that you want to use just yet. Maybe you don't have an archive. Maybe you are a freelance journalist and there's nothing else for you to go to. But you still want to tell the story of this breaking news story, straight away. You want something for social, you want something for your blog, or something for your website. Let's first go to Google Maps, type in the location, and find it. Let's dispel the myth here as well. There's often a lot of confusion about whether or not journalists can use Google Maps. The answer is yes. Take a look at the copyright, though. So now I'm typing in the Google office in California, and once I've found that place, I'm going to go back to the menu. And if you see those 3 lines on the left-hand side up there, that's Google for menu. Click on those, and then look for the words Share or Embed Map. And that comes up with a neat way of doing it. So here we are. We're looking now at an embeddable map with an iframe. All of the copyright is dealt with at the bottom, and your audience can toggle between the illustration and the view there. It sits on your website. You're not taking people off your site onto Google. It sits as a window. This is the neat way. The cheat way is also you're able to screen grab that. If you screen grab this because you can't use iframe or you don't have time, then screen grab it, but the catch is you need to look out for this copyright and add it yourself somewhere, either underneath the photograph or on it. So Google Maps, Google Street View, you can use the image on your web article. If you want to create a video for commercial use, get in touch with us and we'll give you some guidance on that. If you're from a broadcaster, then you need to have a broadcast license, which again is a very quick process. I'll give you an email at the end, which will give you a way to check if you want to make double sure. Very basic then. Let's move on now to a tool that's been around for a while and some of you will have seen before. It's also a tool that I like because I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, don't have a lot of time when I remember being a journalist. This was something that I could have knocked together in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's called Google My Maps. It's been redesigned with mobile in mind, which means it works, and that is a tool that you can use straight away. Let's look at some examples of what this is. So it's a Google map. You add your own editorial layer onto that map to tell a story. You as the journalist need a Google account to create this and save it. Your audience doesn't need any Google account. It can sit on your website as a window, but you give your audience an immersive experience. So this is CTV News, a Canadian commercial newsroom, and they wanted to tell their story of flight MH17. So they've gone onto a Google map and drawn this line, and they've added some content there under those blue banners. And there's apologies for the example, but it's a real one. The banners here, you click on these buttons, and the audience can do this on their phone. They can pinch and grab and all that, or on their desktop they can click. And this left-hand panel comes out. And on that panel is the image that the journalist has uploaded. Underneath it, you can see some accreditation, copyright detail. And I'm able now to click around this map. I, as the audience member, can't change it, but I can look wherever I want. I, as the journalist, can update it as the story develops. And I, as the journalist, can also embed it whatever website I want as many times as I want, okay? Other examples. This is CBC News in Canada again. This time, let's say they are looking at an historical event. Do you remember when there was an earthquake 10 years ago? They've created this immersive map, they've put these buttons on it, and the audience can click at their leisure. And over here, you have more copy this time, no image, but crucially, they've also added in a link to a different part of their website. They're encouraging people to stay within the CBC website, and they're using visuals to keep them engaged. The weather in Perugia feels very close to home right now. In the UK, where sometimes it rains, the BBC one day wanted to say it's a big day where I think the summer had ended and thunderstorms came. So the one day of summer we have in the UK ended, And they said, let's take a look at across England. So they found the best images of rain. They plotted them over here, lovely. And I now can click on these icons and a panel comes out. And in this example, a lot of the panels had a link to the local Facebook page. If you want to share more pictures of rain from Brighton, go and find the Brighton Facebook page for BBC. So they're using it as a way to go to different hubs, drive people around. This one is from Wales. It shows you pubs that have closed in Cardiff. And I noticed not many pubs near the university have ever closed, but other dots on there are colour coordinated. They're showing a pattern over years. I can click on the button, the information comes out. And also, interesting example, because you'll notice a pattern along a certain road. Now, I understand that this is because of roadworks or construction works. So it's not just the obvious story. Maybe this map helps tell another story too. Which bar should you go to in Chicago to support your local football team during the World Cup? Let's go and look at the Brazilian bar in the west of the city. Maybe it's a restaurant review. Maybe it's giving you some information about the food or whatever else. And as I said, it sits on the website. This is what it looks like on the Vice News website. Has anyone here heard of the podcast Serial? They're telling you here how the drama portrays in that city of Baltimore. So I can now click through on these buttons, and as you see, a panel can come over and give a bit more context about that location, maybe an image or a soundbite. So how can you make these? Well, as I said, no developer skills needed, no coding. I think 15, 20 minutes, and you should be good to go. Go to your Google Drive account, click New, and look for the word Google My Maps. I'm going to do a risky thing and try to do a live demonstration. Let's see how this goes. If you can't find it on Google Drive, go to your favorite search engine, there are a couple, and type in Google My Maps. Click on that first link, and it will go through to something like this. Now I'm going to click on this button here, this red circle, or if you've not used this before, there'll be a big red square with the plus symbol. I'm now going to try and build a My Map. Let's click on that. It takes us to approximate area where we are. So let's sit down and make this. So let's go to Perugia Airport. Maybe it's not called that. Let's just go to Perugia. Okay, so I've typed in a location. I'm fairly sure that this is going to be right, but I want to take a look around and see the area. There's the airport I want to eventually get to. Let's firstly click on this box and add this to my map. This is my first destination. Now I want to control the content in that left-hand panel. So this is where we do that. Firstly, let's get rid of this. And let's write the headline. So click on the pen icon. My story. And in here, let's put my award-winning journalism. Maybe a website link. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Let's add an image. And if I'm adding an image, I can put my copyright details down here too. Oh, no. Oops. Let's not do that. Okay, so I'm happy with the content. I want to first make a couple of changes to the map. So let's change this blue icon. Let's click on the paintbrush. And I can change the color. Hopefully you can see that. Also, let's click on more icons. And here you'll see a whole range of options. Sport. Maybe we're doing a local story about sport. We're doing a piece about a town centre. Lots of options there, including Alien. Shark. What's that one? Message in a bottle. That's a new one. Transport, crisis, so more important stories than all that, weather, and I think an excessive amount of options for animals, monster, ghost, alien, and as I saw yesterday, dinosaur is on here somewhere as well. Dinosaur. I'm going to pick a dinosaur. It's important to my story. Or actually, I can also upload my own image. Maybe I'm doing a story about a political rally. Let's click on custom icon and upload the logo of that party or a football team or something like this. Let's stick with that for now. And that hopefully should work. I think the internet doesn't like me as much as I like it today. Let's go somewhere else, though. There's the dinosaur. Something has happened in my story over here. I don't have an address, but I want to mark it. Let's go to the top and click on it where it says Add Marker. And now I can put this anywhere I want. So let's say something's happened there. Story 2, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. The best thing about this is that no one sees this until you're ready to go. So if you make a mistake, who cares? Go back, change it, and correct it. I also want to change the map, so let's click on Base Map now. Some different options. Let's get rid of all these names and details on there. Let's change the look of it. Maybe it's a nighttime thing. What about, that's quite interesting, a terrain maybe. But I think this one might be quite useful too for me. So I'm happy with this. I want my audience to see this now, so I can either preview it or go up here to the top where you have these 3 dots. And I can choose to set a default view. So at what level do you want your audience to first find this map? Zoomed out, zoomed in, what part of the town? And also I can embed it on my site. If I want, I can print it, and you can use this how you need to. For me, this took about 15-20 minutes to get the hang of, and it's a tool that, as you can see, can be updated and embedded as many times as you want. So take a look for Google My Maps. Let's move on to a different tool, and we're going to give you a very quick preview of this one. This one will take longer to experiment with if you've not touched it before. This is Google Fusion Tables. Has anyone here in the room used Fusion Tables before? Okay, so for you, you'll know some of these examples perhaps, but for the majority in the room, google.com/Fusion Tables is the tool we're talking about now. Essentially, it's a way for you to use spreadsheets, data, research, and turn that into a map. Let's say you have a story about the cost of car parking across Italy. You have some research from every different city. It costs €1 in Milan, €2 in Rome, and so on and so on. You have this in a spreadsheet. So you have the location of the car parks, and then next door to it, you have the price. So that's spreadsheet number 1. It's your story. And still, by the way, that's the one that will take the most time to get. Spreadsheet number 2 is the location of those car parks with longitude and latitude next to it too. That's the bit that sounds tricky, but actually you'll find most of your mapping in most major countries around the world will be done for you by your local statistics office. If you take a Google search for it, you might also find local universities have tracked a lot of the longitude and latitudes of towns and locations too. Once you do find it though, put those 2 spreadsheets into something called google.com/Fusion Tables. The tool does its best to match the location with the story. Let me give you an example. This is an old example, but a detailed piece of work. This is a map showing you Iraq, and on top of it are dots which highlight and illustrate the research into civilian and military deaths over a certain period of time. This is a result of Google Fusion Tables, 2 spreadsheets, one with the story, the details of where these deaths have taken place. One was the geography, the longitude and latitude of that country. Story plus geography, uploaded to google.com/fusion tables, it generates a map. And you then can start to tailor this map. If you think about it, you can click on some of these dots as well as a reader, and similar to Google My Maps, a box of information comes up, including your editorial or your link to a story about what happened on that day. Let's go to the UK and look at the Telegraph. They did their own research, a poll about voting intentions ahead of a major election, and they decided to interpret that on a Google Fusion table map. They wanted to show across the UK, according to their own research, were people living in a regional part of the country that was likely to change hands in the election in terms of the parties, or were they what we refer to in the UK as a safe seat? Nothing's going to happen, highly unlikely for change. They wanted to show the reader what the opportunity was in, again, this is 2 spreadsheets. One with a list of the constituencies in that country, next to the word safe or marginal, so that's your story, next to the list of the constituencies of that country with the longitude and latitude boundaries of those constituencies. Coming together, again, it's an embeddable map that your audience can click around. What about where Airbnb locations are across San Francisco? Again, the Chronicle knows their geography. So it's taken someone in their newsroom, maybe an hour or so, to work out the boundaries of their city. But once they've done that once, you can apply this to many stories time and time again. A Swiss example this time, they've got research maybe from the census about the ethnic Russian populations in those different countries. They want to visualize that, and all they needed to do was create 2 spreadsheets, upload it, and it's built for them. Once it's built for you, you can then add different things such as this. This is a menu giving a sense of the different colors. You can change the colors, change the meanings, and so on. A couple of other examples. Again, these news organizations know their patch. They know their geography. So once they've taken time to work out the boundaries, they can apply different stories. This is a Dutch website. This shows you gun ownership in the Netherlands. The darker the red, the higher the gun ownership, leading to agriculture, farms. A German news organization in Hamburg, they want to tell their audience very quickly the results of the local election. This is a Google spreadsheet. This is also Google Fusion tables. So, my honest perspective on this is that I'm not a data expert. I'm not someone I don't love spreadsheets. This is something that took me personally a little bit longer to get grips with. But the website that I showed you at the beginning, and I'll show you at the end, gives you a step-by-step guide that you can build your first Fusion table for the vast majority of you here who maybe haven't used this yet. So give this a bit of a go. You'll also see what stories this works for and what stories maybe another approach might suit. But this is a tool that many have been using for a while, and there are a lot of different examples out there. Let's move on to the next tool now. Who here has used Google Earth before? Okay, so maybe you've flown around your house or something like this, or your town centre. Who here has used Google Earth Pro before? So, for those of you who hasn't, it's a tool that journalists should be using. It's a tool we used to charge for, and we took feedback on board that it could be useful for more journalists, so we changed that policy about 2 or 3 years ago. Google Earth Pro, in its current format, is an application that you need to download onto your desktop. So if you search for these words, and you'll find it, download it, and essentially it allows you to create your own visuals and maps using Google Earth technology. This is a Google Earth Pro video that a journalist or someone has created as a demonstration to show you what you can do. You can go onto Google Earth Pro, create high definition in this case 3D videos. You can take high definition stills, screen grabs from that tool as well, and you can use it in your content, in your stories, in your journalism. This is a quick flyover, of course, of the Vatican, and we're looking around. I go onto Google Earth Pro, I plot in the location I want to take a look at, I download that file, and in my own edit suite of my choice, I upload the file, maybe I slow it down, I speed it up, I add illustration, I add narrative, audio. Maybe I add this into my package, my long piece I'm looking at, or maybe I just use it on its own. This is the Google Earth Pro logo, by the way. It's a silver globe with those black lines on it. What else is available on Google Earth Pro? Well, about 300 cities and more are coming in 3D. This is obviously New York. We're looking at a football stadium in Brazil, and we're looking at the Alps here in Europe. You get a sense of the different types of stories you might be able to tell with some of these visuals. And again, think of the stories where you normally use one archive image. Why not go and find a different image? And there are plenty on there. It's free for you to use as journalists. There are, though, copyright pieces that you should be aware of. This is what the tool looks like. You can see here, fairly straightforward. Let's go to the top left and type in Perugia, or a location of my choice. And it'll take me to the Google Earth view of that. I want to take a square, a rectangle of what I'm looking at. So I'm going to use some of the options at the top there. And when I do highlight a square or area of interest, you'll notice at the bottom here, very clearly, some extra detail. This is extra copyright detail that you need to make sure you're adding underneath the photograph or pasted on top of it. Google Earth Pro works with a range, and Google Earth works with a range of satellite providers we have a license agreement with. So they will expect to see their brand and their details on your imagery, as you'd expect any other attribution for any other photograph. How often is this content uploaded? How often does it change? Well, at the bottom, wherever you are in the world, you'll see imagery date, and that's when it was last updated. In this case, it's a very old screen grab, so it's a couple of years back. How often is it updated? Well, it depends on two things. Newsroom demand. So if a big story happens, a lot of these satellite providers will make sure they have up-to-date imagery of a flood or of something happening. But also weather has a factor too. I was working with Irish journalists about a year ago. Similarly to the weather outside, it was kind of autumnal, and they wanted to see a great view of Ireland from the satellite. Unfortunately, Ireland was covered in cloud for about 2 months. So no image was uploaded, because if the image is starting to look like this one with cloud cover, it's not going to be used, it's not useful. So there are a couple of factors there. You can also click on the camcorder and start to create your movie. In some cities around the world, there have been a license agreement with an archive. So you can click on the clock, and in my hometown in London, you can look at the most recent satellite image, and you can jump back to 1948 and see uploaded archive from World War II and following World War II, and see what happened to the city. Really interesting. And of course, journalists are using this already. So this is a map of Algeria, and it is a breaking news story. It's a refinery of some sort, and some of you will remember this story. There's a hostage situation. Newsrooms around the world wanted to tell this story, this breaking story, but as you can see, a very remote location, probably nothing in their archive that's relevant. So let's go to Google Earth Pro and look at an approximate area of what we're talking about. Then let's use that in a variety of ways. Let's use that on broadcast, on a still, or my favorite, this one up here, the Wall Street Journal. Let's download this image, and then in my own terms, add on my own editorial layer. And you can see, maybe, if you've got great eyesight, the copyright is over here, along the top there. This is not about putting a big Google stamp on everything. This is about appropriate copyright, and allowing you to use the image in your own way. Some examples here, fairly dramatic scenes in this case. It really elevates the story about, in this case, a flood in Serbia. This is from The Guardian. This is going back to look at the Boston Marathon attack, as you'll remember. As well as all their video, their imagery, their written articles, they also want to add a map to illustrate the geography of that event. So let's go onto Google Earth Pro, download a recent view of that part of the finish line, I think it was, there we go. And on top of it, in their own way, they're now adding buttons. So if I'm the audience member, I can click on the photograph, the camera icon, and that comes up with a photograph or a video or something like that. Apologies again, a difficult example, but this is a good one. This is from the New York Times. They want to show people around Paris what happened on that horrible day. They went onto Google Earth Pro, they looked at what was around, and they decided to speed things up, slow them down. As you can see from this screen grab, they've colored it, they've highlighted certain areas of interest, and they've added a graphic. Not to take away from other parts of their storytelling, but to give one visual element that helps to navigate people around the different events. This is an example from Poland this time, and as I said, one of the cities where maybe you'll find some historic archive. Also, by the way, even if you don't find the historic archive on the Google Earth Pro tool, there's nothing to stop you reaching out, of course, to your own local museum or your own local source to go and get this anyway. But Newsweek Poland wanted to compare Warsaw in 2015 or 2016 compared with Poland, Warsaw 70 years ago. In quite a long 3-minute video in this case, they could have added narrative, audio, perspectives, things like that. Let's take a look at some other examples to give you a sense. Let's start with a feature piece. And we're on a German website. And we're looking at Berliner Zeitung. Now, Berliner Zeitung have gone on to Google Earth Pro. I realize I've now lost everyone in the room because you're all just staring at the video like that. This is, of course, Google Earth Pro. And the journalists have plotted on the twists and turns throughout that city. You'll probably guess already, most of you, this is showing you where was the Berlin Wall. They've downloaded this, in this case, a 3D render, and uploaded it into their own tool somewhere else, so their own edit suite of their choice. They, themselves, have carefully added in this red line, which, as I said, shows you the Berlin Wall. I think this is a great example. The copyright detail is at the bottom. The Google Earth watermark is there. If you, as an editor, choose to cover this logo, then okay, but you need somewhere to add Google in your own font then, okay? This shows you a flyover. You can speed it up, speed it down, pause it, do what you want with it. The feedback we've had from journalists is that the Google Earth Pro tool, yeah, it's good, I want to use it, but it could be even more user-friendly. It's likely that we'll have more to say on that some point soon. And bear in mind that our goal is to make these tools easier and simpler for you to use, to save you time. And so some of those feedbacks we've received from journalists here in Europe will be fed in, and as a result, you'll see some improvements to this tool pretty soon. Let's go to another couple of examples. Let's go to Berliner Morgenpost this time, just by coincidence, another German title. This is a piece of Google Earth Pro for a short, snappy social video. Unfortunately, again, we're talking about an attack. This time we're going to London. They want to show their audience the geography of what happened on Westminster Bridge. They've gone on to Google Earth Pro. They've found the location. They've downloaded it. You'll detect what they've done to it. They've added audio, graphics, slowed things down. They've even colored certain things. Let's see if this works for us. Okay. 35-second video. Let's start and walk through it. A flyover of London. Clearly they've added audio. They've added these graphics explaining what happened. And we're now looking at a 3D render of Westminster Bridge, clearly in London. They've coloured it. And in a moment, they'll swipe through into footage they've been given permission to use by a news agency of some sort. 35 seconds, snap breaking news story for their Facebook followers and all their other social audience members. It gives you a good sense of how some of these tools can be used. Let's move on to another one. Let's go to Street View. So many of you hopefully will be familiar with Street View. This is on the ground, a 360 take on a roadway. Let's go back in time with Street View 2. This is historical Street View. What we're seeing here is the building work, of course, around the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. And the Street View car has gone along this stretch of road in that part of the city and has uploaded newer images of that part of the city. Clearly, all of the images of people are blurred. And of course, different countries have different approaches when it comes to Street View. Also, Street View will be uploaded, changed, dependent on where you live, dependent on changes, and also, again, customer and market company need. So in this case, we are looking at the skyscraper going up over time. But I also want to go back in time and see this. So over here on the left-hand side at the top there, if you're on Street View and you see a clock symbol, those two arrows that you can maybe just about see, click on that, and out pops this menu, which gives you the previous images from that location. Sometimes it won't be a huge change. Sometimes it might make a story. It might give you a different perspective. For example, the Wall Street Journal wanted to do a story, a series of stories, about how Brooklyn has changed. And so they went onto Street View, and they went to the same street corner twice. Once in September 2013, once in August 2007. They went back in time. On the left-hand side, we have newsagents, florists, and people living and all this sort of stuff. A few years later, we have skinny jeans, cappuccinos, and hipsters. How hipsters have ruined the world, basically, in one image. Pretty powerful to see as well, this contrast. Let's give you another tool that could help with this as well. This is a non-Google tool. It's called Juxtapose. It's from the Night Lab. This allows you to compare and contrast two images, whether they be Google Earth or not. They can be your own images of your own maps or whatever, or your own photographs. But this free tool allows you to add this widget to your images. So your audience, with their finger, can drag back and forth, or with their mouse can pull back and forth too. This is Sochi in Russia in April 2005. That's 2013. And it gives you something which ultimately you want to play with, you want to engage with, you want to share. Let's look at some other examples if it loads for us. Let's go to the Chicago Tribune. Again, we're on their website. It's not taking us off somewhere else. Let's look at the same theatre, 1926, compared to 2015. Not a huge amount of change, is there? What about this one? Beautiful building, ugly monstrosity. Again, I'm ignoring you now, I'm just doing this. You get the idea. This tool is for free, and I recommend you take a look. It's a widget, as I said, it's from the Night Lab. Whilst we talk about that, I want to go off and look at something else from the Night Lab too, because I think they're doing some great tools. Let's go to another non-mapping tool, but forgive me, we'll just look at this for a second. Timeline. Next time you're doing a feature piece, and you want to build a timeline, but you maybe don't have all the visual skills, developer skills, coding skills, have a think about this tool. Essentially, all you need is a Google spreadsheet, and then head to Timeline, again, timeline.nightlab.com, and then you can start to build your own examples. Let's go to this one. We're looking now, of course, at the timeline of Whitney Houston. Your audience will be able to do this on your website as a window. And again, it's basically 2 spreadsheets. And your audience now have this rich, immersive experience to click, go back, and discover. So let's go and look at the different pieces, and now they're embedding a YouTube video and so on. For me, this illustrates a good example of where the story is helped by the technology. Always, in my personal opinion, story first, technology second. Use the technology to help inform the audience. Let's go back to Street View, though, quickly, a bit of a diversion there, and look at some examples again, before and after. At the bottom here, we have the Google Street View of a shop in London. Above, we have the image from Reuters showing you riot damage. Compare and contrast. And another example of archive use. The Guardian are looking about what happened in London in the 1940s, rather. They have carefully pasted on this archive image in South London on top of a Google Street View of South London last week or last month, whatever. So a range of different examples there. Okay, that's it. We've gone through quite a bit, and I think for some of you who are experts in mapping, you'll have known a lot of that already. So hopefully you found a new example at the very least. I want to give you a couple of things to walk away with. Firstly, let's start with this one. This is something we're talking about across the festival, so I want to make sure you hear about it too. It's not connected to mapping, but it gives you a sense of some of the other things we're doing. We are working to think about a global fact-checking challenge. So if any of you in the room are from a university, or you are a lecturer, or you're a student, then there's an interesting opportunity. We are working with the IFCN to support a global fact-checking challenge, and it's something we're working with the Poynter Institute, and as I said, the IFCN too. Okay. The opportunity here is to help students learn more about verification practices. There's an incentive there, which is to take part in the Global Fact 5 event, which is taking place in Rome. It's a global opportunity, so if you are interested, bit.ly/fact-checking short course. Quite a long link, but bit.ly/fact-checking short course. And also, the final slide before we take questions. If you want to stay in touch with us, here's a range of ways to do so. If you're a journalist using any Google tool, mapping or otherwise, and you get stuck, then newslabsupport@google.com. On there, we have product experts from Google Earth, Google Maps, and so on, and they'll come back to you with any comments or advice. If you want to double-check your copyright on certain things, again, come through to there, and if it's to do with Maps or Google Earth, we can give you a link to look at the full set of permissions and forms. But I think you heard my basic principle at the beginning. Yes, you can, but add the copyright. Learn how to use our tools, g.co/news training. That has 55 lessons on there. And if you are someone that maybe wants to go deeper than we've had time to go today and maybe build your own fusion table, you want to build your own movie that goes over Google Earth Pro, or you want to build your own Google My Map, there's a short link there, bit.ly/geomedialab. That has been specifically built for journalists by our Google Earth product team. It's not as shiny as the other website, but it's very practical. Also, you saw the video at the beginning. We're working all together now on the Google News Initiative. You can find much more about that and everything that touches on g.co/news initiative. Okay, any questions in the room about what we've covered? Marvelous. Corinne, yes. I think you've got to wait for the mic.
Third time lucky. Corinne Podger, I teach people stuff. I was just going to make the comment that you can run a screen recording over that little slider so that you can turn it into a GIF.
Great point. So the juxtapose piece here, that thing, do you mean? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and also perfect, like a trailer for something on social maybe even as well. I'll leave that link up there. So juxtapose.nightlab.com. Any other questions? You're being shy? Okay, oh, one at the front here, yes. Do you want to borrow this one, actually? Save your legs.
I think a lot of people are sad that you shut down Panoramio. Is there something coming up one day that will be an alternative to that?
Thank you. So for those who don't know, Panoramio was, we announced over a year ago that we were closing that, and that is now, that has closed. So for us, we're focusing all of our efforts on Google Maps, making sure that that is the tool where people can upload their own photospheres, upload their own imagery on there. We are working with fact-checking organizations to address some of the other things that came with Panoramio around identification and geolocation. And there's plenty about how you can verify location using a range of Google tools, including Street View, including Google Earth on our website. So if you go to g.co/newstraining, there's a whole section there of how you can use Google Earth and Google Maps for verification purposes specifically. More about that tomorrow in the session as well, but thank you for your question. One there, yeah.
Yeah, with Google Earth, I can show also private apartments, private house, or military buildings that I sometimes can't show with my camera. I work as a public television, Italian public television, RAI. So does it? Can I show private apartments see from above? From the satellite, or it depends from local laws?
Well, the tool itself varies from different countries because, for example, if you go and use Street View in Germany, you'll see that it looks very different to how I would use Street View in the UK. So there are local guidelines and regulations that do apply. I think the best thing to do without picking a specific example is go and take a look. If you go onto the Google Earth Pro tool for your area, quite clearly at the bottom, you'll see an imagery date that will give you when that was last updated. As I said, we work with a range of satellite providers who license their material on our platform, and that agreement is that we make that for free for people to use. Google Earth Pro allows you as a journalist, if you do find something that's useful, to download that in high definition, and on top of that, apply your own editorial. So you can say whatever you want about the canvas that is there, or sometimes that is not there. But the best thing is to go and take a look. And again, if you want a specific question about a certain area that's not there, or you want to request, hey, there's been a big storm and we want to see if there's more up-to-date imagery of flooding or something like that, then one, if you're a broadcaster, you probably already maybe have a license agreement yourself with some of these providers, or two, go onto the tool and see what is there, and if there's an image that you would like to see if it can be uploaded, then get in touch with us and we'll at least connect you to the right people. Okay, thank you very much for coming. Have a great festival, and I'll be around tomorrow as well to talk about digital news gathering. So thanks again.